get into it right now, starting up with Bitcoin. As always, I want to follow up on yesterday and the day prior and that target to $43,000, of which Bitcoin has obviously already hit, and the pullback that is starting to emerge from that, and what that sort of means for the next probably week to come. I probably wouldn't expect too much for today, although I might be eating my words a little bit later when U.S. market opens, but very, very likely early next week, once we get to like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I would be looking for direction on this market. Until then, obviously, a little bit of a short-term time frame range. We are back on the range lows at the 618 Fibonacci retracement right here, and also we do see just that last kind of structural low coming in around about low $40,000 territory, between about 40,500 on a closing basis to as deep as about 40,300 in this case. So I'm looking for a bounce of this region just based off that. Again, do not confuse bounce with a reversal here. This is all lower term time frame stuff, but very, very likely short term time frame stochastic momentum is going to be turning in that direction as well. Let's just go reference that and confirm. Actually, 3 hour is still nosediving, but will turn back up above about 42,350, so a bit of a pain point right there. Buy hourly is going to turn up above 40,450, so Bitcoin currently about almost $300 above that number, and hourly is also going to be turning up, I imagine, above about 40,250. So hourly and 2 hour both showing corrective signals based off of stochastic momentum and volatility. You can see that volatility is on the roof right now on both these timeframes, maybe even on the 3 hour, and 4 hour, perhaps. All of them kind of getting way up there. So I do expect that we are looking at a short-term corrective move here. Short-term corrective move within the context of our current structure and trend, very, very likely does mean a bounce to the upside. How high can bounces go without actually doing anything and just being considered another range play? Anywhere around 41,500 is fair game, although I do think that would be a bit of hoping to be looking for a bounce all the way up there. In the short-term timeframes, somewhere around the 0.5 would be the next sort of relevant region I'll be looking for, which is $40,900 to $41,000, anywhere around that pocket, which I'll just have a nice little blue box right there. If Bitcoin does retake that region, then I would be looking for an extension somewhere around that 41.5 to 41,250-ish region, very, very short-term time frame. So this is all, again, neither here nor there for the higher-term time frames. This is just relevant for, probably the next day or so, if you will. Until then, as long as Bitcoin's below 41,500, I do look at this as a range at best, with very likely Bitcoin coming back down and testing around the range lows in this case. The range lows being between about 39.5 to 39 even for the medium and shorter-term time frames. Anyways, I want to now talk about or follow up on I want to talk about this. I want to follow up on one of the big charts that we were looking at yesterday, which we are still awaiting resolution from. And this is the daily volatility chart, of which we have seen these extreme lows on daily volatility many times in the past couple of years here. I've gone ahead and done it for the past year and a half now. And as you can see, anytime that we have come down to single digit percentiles, and especially, the lower, the bigger effect typically, the expansion phase from that has been on average about a 20% move. In some cases a little bit more, in some cases a little bit less. And that has been incredibly consistent. You've seen several of these in the past, even in the past couple of months here. The most recent one we did identify I think it was like a week ago, maybe? No, sorry, 2 weeks ago. This was early April, on that move down from about $48,000 to our current low side range was about $38,000 or $38,500 if you want to be exact. So, again, you've seen this plenty of times, you've been on this channel, but we're getting it once again right here. We have not seen the expansion from this come just yet. So I would not say that this has a confirmed signal as of right now, but because it is quite literally at 1.19 percentile, incredibly likely that we do see the expansion. Maybe today. I do think that that's a little bit less likely, to be honest with you. I think it's a lot more likely early next week, but that is something that that is an idea that I'm not married to. The idea that I'd be a lot more interested in to confirm is what direction does this volatility expansion come towards? Because if we do see it come from this current region right here, that puts Bitcoin, if it comes to the upside, somewhere around about $50,000. And if it does come to the downside, somewhere around about $33,000 to $34,000. Or sorry, it actually might be a little bit less than that. But regardless of that, we have seen in the past that daily stochastic momentum has been generally decent with getting the direction on it, but not great. So I don't know how much I trust it myself. If you just go off of the signals on the actual expansion phase. So when I say actual expansion phase, I mean that first tick up on the daily BBWP measuring volatility right there. Then the daily stochastic momentum oscillator, the direction from that has been right about 8 out of 10 times, 8 out of the last 10 times. So 80%, it has gone the right direction. That's pretty good results, to be fair, but that would also imply that you're probably going to miss, or if you are waiting for that, you're very likely going to miss the first leg of that move, which in a lot of these iterations is actually the biggest leg. Or, I mean, it is the biggest leg, yes. Typically doing about, almost half of the move, and then the next half of the move happening over the next, there's not really an average for this one. Some of them are like 2 weeks, some of them are like less than 1 week. So I wouldn't really say that there's like a general average, for example. But in this case right here, the reason why I'm calling this one out is because in order to get a downside resolution on daily stochastic momentum, Bitcoin would need to close below $39,000. The reason why that is very important right here, or very much relevant right now, is because that would be essentially the bottom side of the, of the overall range, meaning that not only would you have a range resolution to the downside, but you'd also have daily stochastic momentum turning to the downside. And I strongly imagine that at that point, we very likely would see the daily BBWP expansion phase. So it would be relevant to then be looking for, statistically speaking, based off of that signal, somewhere down around our weekly range lows, which weekly range lows, guess where those are? 34-ish, let's call it, 34,000-ish, if you will, as I stumble over my words, which would very much be in alignment with what we did see on the presumed target if this does expand to the downside. So again, $39,000, big area. Below there, not only do we see that signal happen, but we do see, a range resolution, which would imply continuation and also in line with the current trend as well. So I think that all of those things are very, very important, obviously. And then that could potentially play into the higher term timeframes, of which we are still, yes, awaiting this goddamn signal over here, which can get much worse. But I don't think that we'll get into that right now. I don't think that is super relevant right now. What I should talk about, however, that perhaps could be a little bit more a little bit more on the BULA side, or a little bit more on the hopium side for the short term, is this. If we go over here and we go check out two things. One, Dixie. We did get the pullback that we were looking for yesterday to the 99.7 region. That was this tick right here. It's actually about spot 10 cents above where I was looking for, but close enough is close enough in this case. Anywhere around the yellow 21 was fine. I actually am still looking at this as putting in very, very likely a top right here, and very likely does come down. So if you do want a little bit of hopium, the hopium, at least in my opinion, is that you are seeing a pullback very likely emerge still from the same area. Of course, this is being based off of a weekly, and actually more importantly, a monthly. So these things do take time to play out. And I do suspect that if you are going to get a pullback from this region, while long-term this would imply, bullishness, actually, like macro bullishness over the next few years, I would probably be looking for a pullback somewhere around 98.7, maybe even as far down as 97, basically 97 and in change right there. But until we get that, of course, that is a bit more of a hopium. So where do you essentially confirm a local high right here with targets to the downside? It's actually pretty damn simple. Just anywhere below yesterday's low would do it for me. And then, yes, I would be looking for that move to come somewhere around 98, 97-ish region, essentially, which likely does bode well for Bitcoin and general markets. So if I am wrong on that, the way that you'll know that I'm wrong about that, essentially an invalidation, would be essentially just closing on new highs right here would probably be good enough for me. Until then, I do still really like this area for a generalized pullback based off the monthly. I mean, this was like this was not just a multi-month long target. It was like a half-year target right here that we had coming in from October, September breakout. And so, these things are very, very likely going to take some time. So I suspect that this probably happens over the next couple months. But long term, like macro, if you want to get into that, I'm humongously bullish on this, and I wouldn't be surprised in the next like 4 or 5 years to see this one up somewhere around about $1.10 or so, just based off of the quarterly chart, of which we do have extremely low volatility conditions alongside hidden bullish evidence. So I think that the reversal might indeed be real right here. Anyways, other than that, let's now go over the other sort of hopium-ish sort of thing right here, which would be SPY chart. So SPY obviously broke down alongside Bitcoin, or maybe that relationship is inverted. More importantly, and what do we see right here? We do see that SPY is coming back down to the same level that we had marked off. I think the last time we charted this one out was like late last week. So still working right here. The hopium is that you're very likely going to bounce off this region, yes, but the hoping is that then you'll pop back above about 44.50 and then complete, an actual higher low right here and actually have a major reversal on the daily. The doomium is that you close below the range lows, below about 43.50, and at that point, you really have to entertain the strong possibility and the strong likelihood that this is entering into a very much long-term bear market here, which, next targets to the downside would be somewhere around the last sort of weekly lows, which is about 4,200. Very likely a bounce there, but again, bounce not the same thing as reversal, at least until proven otherwise. Other than that, is there anything else that I want to get into right now? Yeah, I suppose that we should probably talk about this a little bit more on the medium and higher term time frame side for Bitcoin. We did initiate hidden bearish divergence right here on 12-hour RSI. It's not like a super concerning signal, but if you do get that next closure below, then, well, at least looking at moves back down towards range lows, and at that point, puts Bitcoin in kind of a precarious place because the daily momentum turns down below $39,000, which probably begets continuation towards 37s-ish, if you will. And also volatility starting to tick up over here as well. Other than that, is there anything that I want to talk about? I guess we'll just briefly mention this. I'm not going to go over the full rigmarole on this, however, but on the 5-day volatility versus momentum chart, again, I do want to express my concern for price action that the probabilities of trading lower over time are, higher as long as this condition is met over here on the 5-day stochastic momentum. Why is that? Because the stochastic momentum has gotten the correct direction for that, 45-ish% or so move off of volatility expansion over here. All times in the last couple years at least, and we can of course go further back than that. But in this case, as long as Bitcoin's below that region, the risk does remain lower, to be fair. The earliest time that I'd even consider calling a major bear trap now is, well, I guess it's a little bit better now because the numbers lower would be $43,000. Essentially yesterday's rejection. Anywhere above there, yeah, Bitcoin looks good. In the short, at least for another rally up towards 45 to maybe even 48. At that point, I do start to look at Bitcoin as probably putting in a macro low right here. So I do want to represent both sides as neutrally as possible. Just understand that as long as that condition is not being met, I do have to, from a probabilistic standpoint, say that that general downside continuation is more likely. You'll know that first in the short-term timeframes that things are starting to flip around, the old flipperoonie. If Bitcoin starts to close 4-hour dildos back above about $42,000, that'd be the first sort of quote-unquote good thing. The big one, however, is now $43,000 on a daily closing basis. Maybe you could use a 12-hour as well, and at that point, this is going to start to look a lot more like a macro low here, but still probably looking at another month or so in this range, which is probably going to bore the shit out of everyone, as it should. Anyways, other than that, I want to wish you, or at least I hope that this analysis was in some way helpful. And there you go, sirs and sirs.